What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to take a little bit of a look at all of the logos cards from Mass Mutation. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We finally have nice, clear images of every single card in Mass Mutation. So we are continuing our series now where we take a look at every single new card in Mass Mutation. And it's not intended to be a deep dive because that would be silly. What it is intended, it would take hours, literally hours. What it is intended to be is a nice little look through, kind of like a checklist with first impressions. Think about it that way. Plus, I know a lot of people do like listening to these as kind of almost like a podcast. So if you do want to listen to it kind of like a podcast, this should work very nicely indeed. So let's look at all of the logos cards from Mass Mutation. And now the first one here is a little bit weird. It's Dark Amber Vault, because this can actually pop up in a number of different houses. So even though the card looks like a Star Alliance card here, it could be a logos card. It is an artifact that reads, after you play a mutant creature, draw a card. Each friendly mutant creature gets +2 power. So you can see why this did not show up in the Sanctum video yesterday. This is not a Sanctum card. If you've got a lot of mutants, this is amazing. And it only powers up friendly mutant creatures, and it's going to be amazing draw power here. So yeah, this is ridiculous. Logos deck with lots of mutants. Count me in, ladies and gentlemen. Count me in. AUTO-ENCODER, it is a special rare incidentally, so don't expect to see it very much. AUTO-ENCODER is an artifact, and after a card is discarded from your hand, you archive the top card of your deck. Now, this says after a card is discarded, so whether you discard it or your opponent isn't particularly important. But what is important here is that it's building up archive. Obviously, the usual reference to Eddie here, the one that increases the cost of your opponent forging a key for every card in your archive. Sad news is, unfortunately, that Eddie is not in Mass Mutation. Unfortunately, Eddie could come in as a legacy card, but anytime you want to build up an archive, this is good. Yes, random archiving can backfire because you end up with a bunch of cards in your archive and then you pick them all up and you got a hand filled with stuff you can't play, but this could be really, really helpful. Plus, of course, you can just discard a bunch of cards from your hand, put a bunch in your archive, and then your next Shadows turn, if you've got a bunch of Shadows cards in your archive, it's just going to give you a bigger hand, right? Which a lot of the time is going to be good. BOOKTON, 4 power, 0 armor, and you play the top card of your deck when you reap. The key point here is you play the top card of your deck. So, for instance, we're basically looking here at like Wild Wormhole. Now, you are blindly playing the top card of your deck. This could absolutely come back to bite you. But, again, you need to be aware of this. If you've got a card that's just gonna destroy all of your creatures and it's still in your deck and you've got a bunch of creatures out, don't reap with BOOKTON. Simple as that. It's in your control. But a lot of the time this just means you're going to play an extra card, and that is awesome. Now, a bunch of the houses in Mass Mutation have a theme, shall we say, a bunch of themed cards, and logos have the bots. They are special rares, and we've got Demobot, or Damobot, depending how you want to pronounce it. 3 power, 0 armor, and when you reap, you discard a card from your hand. If you do, you draw a card. So you're not gaining a card advantage, but you are refreshing your hand, and that's cool. And when it's destroyed, you steal an amber. Oh, yeah, we like this, ladies and gentlemen. We like this very, very much indeed. Now, of course, there are bots for all of the houses here. Dinobot is 5 power, 0 armor. Now, they all have the Reap skill. Discard a card from your hand if you do draw a card. The difference is the other part. So, Dinobot, when you play it, you may exalt it. Put an amber on from the common pool, remembering that when it gets destroyed, your opponent will get the amber. If you do, you deal 3 damage to a creature. Clearly, this is the Saurian version. Lycobot, 4 power, 0 armor with Skirmish. If you fight and you start it, you don't take any damage back. Same Reap skill. So that's clearly the untamed one. Sacrobot, 5 power, 2 armor. When you reap, you discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw a card. Yeah, there's no extra skill here, but you are 5 power, 2 armor. That's kind of beefy. The armor, of course, is marking out as a Sanctum card. Umbra Bot, 3 power, 0 armor with elusive. That means that when you are attacked the first time each turn, nothing happens. They're going to attack you twice. And the same reap skill. This is clearly the Shadows version. Xenobot is the Star Alliance version, 4 power, 0 armor. And the same reap skill. Discard a card from your hand if you do, draw a card. But when you fight, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 into your hand and 1 on the bottom card of your deck. So very clearly here then, Demobot was the Dis one. Yay! Although stealing on destroyed, I don't know if that's the most Dis thing I've ever heard. But they are all of the bots, and we went slightly out of order here, but we kind of had to. Diametric Charge is an action card with an amber bonus, and when you play, you deal 1 damage to a creature with 2 damage splash. That is to say, 2 damage to each of its neighbours. It's good for getting damage on the field. It's not amazing, but you get an amber and get some damage down. It's quite nice. Plus the flavour text here, cool bots don't look at explosions. Love it. Eclectic Inquiry is an action card with an amber bonus, and when you play, you archive the top 2 cards of your deck. Again, blind archiving can be a pain, because you end up archiving 3 cards from each house, so then you pick up all 9, but you're not drawing any cards for a couple turns, because you've got a bunch of unplayable cards in your hand. Most of the time, all that's really going to happen here is that you end up with a larger hand and more options, and that's a good thing. Even Ivan, 4 power, 0 armor creature, and it's got an action. If your opponent has an even amount of amber, you steal 1. Now, stealing 1 as an action is good. Now, let's be clear, right? There are a whole bunch of Shadows creatures that can steal 1 as an action, and there's no downside here. Yancey Gang springs to mind. But let's not take away from the fact that they're Shadows, they're supposed to be stealing. This is a nice stealing option in a Logos deck. It's not always going to work, unfortunately. It's only going to work if your opponent's got an even amount of amber. But you know what? It's still stealing, and I'm alright with that. Logos are not known for their amber control, so anytime you want to give me a little bit of extra amber control in a Logos deck, I'm going to be listening. But wait! We've also got Odd CLAWDE, a 5 power, 0 armor creature that if your opponent has an odd amount of amber, you've got an action to steal 1. Well, look how that worked out. Literally, right, if you put the cards side by side, they even make 1 picture. And they are both special rares, so the strong implication here is that they will always appear in decks as a pair, and now it all makes perfect sense. Yes, both these abilities are extremely situational and pedantic, but if you get both cards out, one of them's going to be stealing an amber every turn. Or every Logos turn. Of course, if we get 2 Yancey Gang out, they're going to be stealing 1 amber each, but shh. INFOMORPH is a 4 power, 0 armor creature that brings in 2 draw enhancements into your deck. By virtue of INFOMORPH being in your deck, there will be 2 extra draw enhancements randomly inserted onto your cards. Remember, that is to say that when you play the card, you draw a card, and they will be randomly assorted throughout your deck because you've got INFOMORPH in your deck. Yay! Obviously, it's Logos, we would expect more draw enhancements here. We can then have to look at LETHOLOGICA. It's an action card with an amber bonus, and when you play it, you discard cards on the top of your deck until you either discard a Logos card or run out of cards. If you discard a Logos card this way, put it into your hand. So basically, it gives you an amber and lets you have an extra card, but because it's a Logos turn, you are going to be able to play it this turn. Logos card, Logos turn. Cool. Really, it just gives you an amber and then replaces it with a different Logos card. I'm alright with that. That sounds good to me. Munchling is a 3 power, 0 armor creature with skirmish. If you start the fight, you'll take no damage back. And when you fight, you may discard a Logos card from your hand or archives and gain an amber. Remember, it's got skirmish, so unless your opponent attacks Munchling, Munchling is going to stay on the field for many turns, and you can always discard a Logos card from your hand or archive. Yes, I know discarding it from your hand is the equivalent of just playing an action card with an Amber bonus and nothing else. But the fact that you can clear out cards from your archive or your hand while getting an Amber, I mean, if you've got a Logos card in either your hand or your archive that you just don't want to play right now, there's too big a downside, etc., this will literally let you get rid of it while gaining an Amber. Yes, I like this one. Opposition Research brings a damage enhancement into your deck, so one other card in your deck will randomly have a damage icon. And when you play, enemy creatures cannot reap during your opponent's next turn. They can still use actions, they can still fight, but they have to take a turn off of reaping. And I kind of dig this. This is cool. If your opponent's got a whole bunch of creatures down and what they're planning to do next turn is reap and gain a bunch of Amber and try and forge some keys, you play this, they can't. Sounds good to me. Q-MECHS is a 1 power 0 armor creature, could not be weaker. But when you play it, you draw a card, and when it's destroyed, you archive it. So it keeps going into your archive, you can keep getting it back, it draws you a card every time you play it. It's draw power. It's draw power that just keeps coming back. I'm cool with this. Titan Engineer. Now, we didn't know there was going to be a new Titan. There's always a new Titan. This is one of the ones we translated from the Polish deck. And it's a 6 power 0 armor creature, which is high. And when it's not on a flank, keys cost +1 Amber. Now they cost +1 Amber for everybody, for you and your opponent. And it's a Titan, so we're expecting some kind of, if it is or isn't on a flank ability. And this is one of those double-edged ones that you have to be extremely careful with. Sometimes this will backfire mightily. Sometimes it won't. If your opponent is looking to forge the next couple of keys and you're really worried about that, this will increase the cost of them forging. It's a very good thing. If you're looking to forge the next couple of keys, you probably don't want to increase the cost of you forging. So be careful, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful. Causal Loop, when you play it, you archive a card and Causal Loop. It's alright. It's quite nice if you want to build up your archive, if you want to get a really large archive. But the fact that you archive it, and then you got to pick it up from the archive, but then you got to pick up your whole archive here. Thematically, in Logos, I think it's brilliant. But by the same token, I think a lot of the time I'd rather just have a lab work, given that lab work lets me archive a card from my hand and gives me an Amber. I do think it's a weaker version of lab work. CHRONUS is a 3 power 0 armor creature with 2 draw enhancements. Again, you should expect, in the same way Sanctum had lots of capture enhancements, you should expect Logos to have lots of draw enhancements. And what we see from CHRONUS here is it brings 2 into your deck, but after you resolve a draw bonus icon, you may archive a card. Except this is deliberate archiving from your hand, so you can do that thing I love doing, where you build up lots of Shadows cards in your archive, so then you have that one Shadows turn, where you basically end up with 8 cards you can play, because you've picked up 6 from your archive. Love CHRONUS, think it's amazing. FISSION Bloom brings an enhancement, a draw enhancement, into your deck, randomly puts it on a card. And the next time you play a card this turn, resolve each of its bonus icons an additional time. This is another one of those that is going to be extremely difficult to figure out how good it is. You've got to look at the particular deck. Let's say I've got a card with 3 draw enhancements on. Well, I've got FISSION Bloom down. I use my action. I then play it and draw 6 cards rather than 3. Amazing! I think at the worst it's going to give you extra Amber, so it's still going to be quite cool. The other thing too, because there's always cards in your deck with Amber bonuses, so you play one and then you resolve it twice. It is worth noting here that it only works for the remainder of this turn, so you pretty much have to be resolving bonus icons on Logos cards, which does make it a bit less good. Forge Compiler is an artifact, and after your opponent forges a key, you destroy it and ward each friendly creature. There's something weird about cards that reward you for your opponent forging a key. You don't want good stuff happening when your opponent forges a key because you don't want them to forge a key. But if they do forge a key, this is kind of cool. Remember, ward counters say that the next time a creature would be damaged, destroyed, or otherwise removed from play, you remove the ward counter and nothing bad happens. Having one of them on all of your creatures sounds good. Krzap! When you play, you destroy each non-mutant creature and gain 1 chain. Incidentally, this is exactly the kind of card you should be worried about hitting with a bot BOOKTON. Be very careful. Again, this really depends on your deck and your opponent's deck. If they've got lots of mutants and you don't, this will hurt you. But the fact of the matter is it's board wiping, and board wiping has always been extremely powerful. If your opponent's got 20 creatures out and none of them are mutants, you get rid of them all. You've got to gain 1 chain, but it is only 1 chain. 1 chain means basically 1 fewer card on 1 turn. Yes, obviously you'd like as many cards as you can. We're talking logos today, right? Logos know better than any house that the more cards you've got, the better. They are the drawing cards house. But the fact of the matter is, this is still very, very nice. And I'm a fan. Board wiping is one of those things I think every good deck should have. I love the fact that this absolutely does have it. Mutagenic Serum has an Omni ability and gives you an Amber bonus. You destroy Mutagenic Serum, and you may use friendly mutant creatures this turn. It's house cheating. It means that on this 1 turn, and it is an Omni ability, so you can use it regardless of your active house, you get to use all of your mutant creatures regardless of what house they're in. Yeah, Sanctum had lots of anti-mutant cards. Logos do seem to be rocking the pro-mutant cards here, with things like Krzap and this. NOVU DYNAMO, 8 power, 2 armor, it's gigantic. And at the start of your turn, you may discard a Logos card from your hand or archives. If you do, you gain 1 amber. If you don't, you destroy NOVU DYNAMO. Okay, you've got to discard a Logos card from your hand or archives every turn. But you gain an amber and you've got an 8 power, 2 armor creature. I'm down with this. This is way better than Munchling. Because it's also every turn, right? And then you can reap. Love it. Absolutely love it. One of my very favourite cards in Mass Mutation. Professor TERATO. 4 power, 0 armor creature. Each mutant creature gains reap. Draw a card. Now, Logos itself isn't overflowing with mutants. But there are clearly a lot of pro-mutant cards in Logos, so you really are going to be crossing your fingers that your Logos deck comes out of a bunch of mutants. Every time you reap, you draw a card. It's brilliant. Now, this is each mutant creature, not each friendly mutant creature, so this will impact your opponent's cards as well, to which I say be careful. This could come back to hurt you. This could give your opponent more of an advantage than it gives to you. So be careful. Adaptoid, 4 power, 0 armor, and it brings a capture enhancement and a damage enhancement and a draw enhancement into your deck. That's kind of cool. And after you play a card with a bonus icon for the remainder of the turn, Adaptoid gains either +2 armor or Assault 2, you deal 2 damage before you attack, or fight, steal 1 amber? Yes! If you've got enough bonus icons in your deck, you're going to always be able to get either 2 armor or assault 2 or fight, steal 1. And it brings 3 enhancements into your deck. There is so much to like about Adaptoid. Animator is an artifact with an action that moves an artifact to a flank of its controller's battle line. And for the remainder of the turn, it is a creature with 3 power that belongs to the active house. Nice! It then leaves the battle line when it's no longer a creature. Cool! Basically, it is an artifact that lets you turn an artifact into a 3 power creature. Love it! Absolutely love it. Gives you an extra creature to use. What could go wrong? AUTO-YAC 5150 is an artifact with an action that says you may discard a random card from your archive. If you do, keys cost +3 amber during your opponent's next turn. Otherwise, archive a card. So, I like this. This is cool. And the fact of the matter is, you're increasing the cost of your opponent forging. It's not... It's not amber control per se, because you're not really stopping your opponent forging a key by getting rid of their amber. You're stopping them forging by increasing the cost. But who really cares? The key part of that sentence is you're stopping your opponent forging a key. We all need cards like this. This one is awesome. Bearing in mind, I'm saying over and over again about filling your archive with 3 different houses can be really awkward and clog your hand. Yeah, this lets you discard a card from your archives to prevent that happening while hurting your opponent. And it's an action on an artifact, so you can do it every turn. Tell me how this isn't awesome. Cyberclone is a 1-power, 0-armor creature. And when you play it, you purge another creature, friendly or enemy. And until Cyberclone leaves play, it has power equal to the purge creature's power and gains that creature's armor, keywords, and traits. So it doesn't gain skills, but it does gain traits like dinosaur and keywords like Omega and all of that. Love it. Absolutely love it. Big fan. But then again, what if your opponent doesn't have any good creatures in play? I don't see any real reason to purge one of your own creatures just to copy it. Well, I suppose maybe if it was about to be KO'd. I mean, really what we want here is we want to copy a gigantic creature. We want to copy something like a Deacylus, for instance, which is the gigantic creature that we see in Saurian Republic, when it would basically be a 20-power creature. That would be cool. Library card is an artifact with an action that lets you purge it. And if you do for the remainder of the turn, after you play a card, you draw a card. It's library access. It is library access, but as an artifact. And it makes you purge it to prevent what happened with library access. Again, from a thematic standpoint, I think this is amazing and I love it. This is so cool, ladies and gentlemen. It's so cool. Now, it is an artifact with an action, and it does purge, so there are going to be decks and situations, right, where you play this down, and your opponent just goes, boom, remote access, I'm going to use it myself, and that's going to be kind of hilarious, so do watch out for cards like that. But we've seen from library access, right, it's just phenomenal. It gives you ridiculous draw power. Mind over matter, when you play it, you put each creature into its owner's archives, and this one really could go either way. With lots of play skills, this becomes great for you or for your opponent. If you've got few creatures out, this is great for you, and if your opponent's got many, it's bad for them. But this really could go either way. You could be getting rid of a huge battle line of your opponents. Bearing in mind, when creatures are played, they are played exhausted, so you cannot use them right away. So you basically get to turn off all your opponent's creatures for a turn, and that's if they can play them all down immediately, which basically means they're all of the same house. It might take them 3 turns to play all of the creatures again, because of the 3 different houses, and you can clog their archive, so they're not drawing cards for a few turns. And here, all they're really doing is replacing their creatures, but they could have lots of coming into play skills. The ideal situation here is you get to reuse a bunch of great play skills while wrecking your opponent's battle line. It's not always going to work that way, but when it does, it's going to be beautiful. The Archivist is a 3-power, 0-armor creature. If you archive it face up. And while it's in your archives, instead of picking up all your archives, you may choose to pick up any number of cards in your archives. I am so in love with this card. I have talked many times in this video and in a bunch of others. It can be really awkward when there's cards in your archives you really want to pick up, but in order to pick it up, you've got to pick up a bunch of, because it's all or nothing in your archive. You've then got to pick up a bunch of cards you don't want to pick up, and then you're clogging up your hand, and that's really awkward, because you're not drawing till 6 at the end of your turn, because you've got more than 6 cards in hand. This literally fixes that problem. It is not just one of my favourite cards in the set, it is one of my favourite Keyforge cards ever. And then finally, Ultra Gravitron. And we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on this. I did a video about this card in its entirety. A whole video dedicated just to this card. I'll link it in the description. But I think it is the best of the massive creatures. 10 power free armor is lower than something like Deicilus. But when you play, you archive the top 5 cards of your deck. And when you fight or reap, you discard a card from your archives, purge a creature, and resolve each of its bonus icons as if you had played it. So basically, every turn when you fight or reap, you're purging one of your opponent's creatures. It could be one of your own, but usually not. And if they've got any bonus icons, you get them as well. I see this as a creature that comes down and just starts purging all of your opponent's creatures left, right, and center. I am in love with this card. I love logos generally, right? But when I look at cards like Ultra Gravitron and like the Archivist and like NOVU DYNAMO, I start looking at this set and going, can I have a bunch of Mass Mutation logos decks, please? That would make me happy. So that is every new logos card from Mass Mutation, but now it's over to you guys. Are you as high on logos in this set as I am? What are your favourite cards you've seen? Oh my goodness, I didn't even shout out library card then. Man, I love logos. Let me know in the comment section. Tell me your favourite card. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk Keyforge and a whole bunch of other games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.